Or Senate today, Thursday, 20th of March 2025, have approved the state of emergency declared by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Rivers State on Tuesday. The resolution of the Red Chamber was announced by Senate President Godswill Akpabio during plenary after about 2 hours of closed-door session. The Red Chamber, just like the House of Representatives in approving the emergency rule, said the National Assembly should oversight the activities of the sole administrator. It also recommended the setting up of eminent Nigerians who would meet with the warring parties in the political crisis. President Tinubu had on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in Rivers State following intractable crisis between Governor Siminalayi Fubara and members of the State House of Assembly loyal to Minister of FCT Nyesom Wike. While the president had in a nationwide emergency broadcast suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy Ngozi Odu, and all the members of the State House of Assembly. The president also appointed Vice Admiral Iborite Ibas, retired, as administrator to take charge of the affairs of the state. Tinubu on Wednesday evening saw in Vice Admiral Ibas as sole administrator of Rivers State. Well, I'll begin with you, Dr. Henry. You heard the state broadcast that was given by the president as regards the state of emergency in Rivers State with all of the things happening in Rivers State. First, I would like to get your reactions as to the state of emergency declared by the president.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
When I went through the story coupled with the president's speech that declared state of emergency here in Rivers State, for me, is an action that for me is not all that pleasant, considering the strategic position of Rivers State as it concerns Nigeria as a country. But be it as it may, it might have had reasons that is not understanding by me as an individual. But looking at the state of emergency itself, we have other states in this country that are warring with terrorism.
All right.
That are warring with many other things that disturb the peace and tranquility of this country. And state of emergency is not declared. And it is now declared here in Rivers State where 2 or 3 political gladiators are waging wars, trying to, who will be the sole controller of the state and so on and so forth.
All right, so if I get it correctly, the state of emergency declaration didn't go down well with you, just like every other, some parts of Nigeria, some Nigerians that didn't go well with that.
Now, looking at the section of the Constitution invoked by the President, section 305, subsection 1 and 2, where the President derives his power to do what he did. I am not saying the action itself, but for you to suspend elected officials, the governor, the deputy, and the State House of Assembly. You see, this is where we need to really point at. Yes, he derived his power from that section of the Constitution that says if there is war or crisis in any part of the country, that the President has the power to act immediately. But on that, there is no clause in the Constitution that empowers the President to suspend an elected official or elected officials.
All right, so we're going to come to that and we'll discuss about the clause in the 1999 Constitution you're talking about, if it actually gives the President the power to suspend the governor or not. Well, let's take a look at this theory now, today's theory. The National Assembly, the House of Reps, have okayed the state of emergency being declared by the president. What would you make of that quickly?
Yes, when you look at the section 4 of that 305, yes, it also empowers the president to make sure that he transmits what he has done to the National Assembly to effect it.
All right.
And that he has done. But going forward, I think since both houses of the National Assembly, that is the Senate and the House of Representatives, are okay, fine and good. But there are other schools of thought that advise the president to see that, look, you have made this to be 6 months. But if there should be a remedy, you understand, that will shorten it and make it 1 or 2 months, so that the the reason why you impose this state of emergency should be quickly addressed in order not to keep it too long. But remember, whether it was by the hook or by the crook, the people of Rivers State elected Sim Fubara as the governor, his deputy, and other representative of the people in the State House of Assembly. But now the people will be missing all of this because democracy is a government that respects the rule of law. And we should not allow it to linger because of one reason or the other, that when you go deeply, you discover a whole lot of things which I don't want to dig.
Okay. So Dr. Eunice, I would like to get your take as regards to this. I mean, you heard the proclamation made by the president as regards to the state of emergency in Rivers State. How did you go? What's your reaction first thing?
Firstly, it's a very welcome. It's welcome by me. Very welcome development. Okay, that's my first reaction, because our president has to, what he did, he played a totally fatherly role in what he did, because as we all know, we have this crisis that have been lingering in the state. It's almost going to 2 years now. You understand? There has been so much restiveness in different factors of the state. You understand? And we all know where this has emanated from and the extent to where we are at the point at which the president said, all right, he had to declare a state of emergency. From what my colleague here said about the Constitution, talking about state of emergency, that when there is a matter of wars and there are stipulated down rules in our Constitution that calls for the action our dear president took. And I don't see him going out of line of the Constitution.
So does the Constitution also stipulate the instance where the president can, suspend the democratically elected governor in a state?
Now, every situation has its local. Every situation has is distinct. In other ways, in other words, it could have been something else. It may not have been the governor or the House of Assemblies. It may have been an entirely different faction in the state, or what had transpired. But though every situation has to be dealt with locally and distinctly. Do you understand? Nobody can say, oh, why is he saying it's not in the Constitution that they should remove the governor, suspend the governor, not remove, suspend the governor and the House of Assembly members and all that. It may have been any other thing.
Well,
and the president stepped in. Rightly.
I quite understand the fact that the president has the sole responsibility to make sure that law and order is being maintained in the country. But then there have been instances of several, clashes in some states. We've seen issues where it has erupted to violence, and most especially in Benue State as we speak. But up until now, there haven't been any state of emergency being, declared in such a state. What would you also make of that? And then the president all of a sudden, declare a state of emergency in Rivers State, just for the issue of, we've seen that issue of the pipeline explosion and all of that, and it's been referred to as security threat and all of that. And all of a sudden, he declared the state of emergency. What would you make of this instance?
Now, when you look at the other states, which you just referred to as having issues. You will agree with me that for any democratic government, you have 3 arms of government functioning. In the states in which you have called having these issues and stuff, which we all know, have you ever heard of anything like the case of Rivers State, where a whole 2 arms of government are at war with each other? If you have issues in this state like Benue and others, you can see that both the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, they are working hand in glove, to address whatever issues are arising in their distinct states. But in us, there's infighting. Do you understand? If the center if the center cannot hold, then what are we doing? If the persons that are meant to to run the government, to run the state, they had loggerheads. What are we talking about?
Okay, now the Senate has okayed the declaration of the state of emergency, but then they gave conditions. We see that when the governor was suspended, they now appointed a sole administrator,
Yes.
which is about to retire. Well, but the question is, how effective might the Senate condition of National Assembly oversight be ensuring accountability from the sole administrator, the the sole administrator and the Vice Admiral Ibas?
We heard from the news that they are going to be working together.
All right.
They are going to draw up members from the Senate and members from the National Assembly to work together with the sole administrator. I think we just have to sit back and just trust that our president knows what he's doing.
All right, so one more question before we move on to Dr. Harry. Well, would this resolution by the National Assembly now help to mediate the crisis in River State right now as we speak?
I believe so.
How? In what ways?
You know, we're working with rules and laws.
Okay.
Now, you remember when in the president's broadcast, he said that they are going to be they will set up panels to look into, or committees, okay, to look into the issues. You know, these issues have been tried to be resolved, starting from the person of the president.
Okay.
If we can remember, when he called these warring parties to a meeting, he left his duties, he left what he was supposed, well, it's part of his duties anyway, but then he took out time, precious time, okay, to address these factions.
So you said he called the both parties.
Yes, he did.
He called the both parties.
Yes, as a father.
Still on the broadcast that he made mention that the governor didn't consent him as regards to what is going on in River State.
If you are following the trend, listen, if you are following the trend, you will find out from the reports that came out, at that meeting, where they deliberated together, where the meeting where he called the warring parties together, they reached an agreement.
Right.
It's just not reaching an agreement. What they agreed on was called out item by item, and was called. Did they okay it? And they said affirmative from the beginning to the end, and they agreed. It was so shocking to the president and to others that after they left the presence of the president, they now came back and said that whatever the president had said, whatever they agreed there, is not constitutional. Rather, it is political. Why didn't they say it there? Okay, fine. If they have said, okay, we don't agree, is there anything like, I mean, we are siblings now. We went before our father, and he made a pronouncement after deliberating some deliberations with us. And then we said, okay. Then we went back and said, oh, no. One person said, no, hey, I don't do it. What are you supposed to do? Are you not supposed to go? It's your father. Are you not supposed to go back to him and say, excuse me, Dad, look, what you told me, I think I've had a second thought.
All right.
And we expected that was what Governor Fubara should have done. All
right. Well, Dr. Henry, over to you now. We've seen this committee that has been set up now from the National House of Reps, as regards to the state of emergency. Now the question is, how might this, or what precedent does this emergency declaration set for federal intervention in state level political crisis in Nigeria?
It's unfortunate that this kind of thing happens here in Bola State. Now, when you look at the whole of this, it has political undertone.
All right.
In the president's speech as regards, is there a declaration of state of emergency here in River State? When you look at what he listed in his speech, it is only making mention of that. Mind you, that this political wobble or struggling has to do with two persons, the governor and his own. And in that speech, the president did not in any way make mention of the other party. He was only concentrating on Fubara did not do this, Fubara did not do this, and so on and so forth. Is it how to settle squabble? The answer is no. Now, when even if we want to go back to history, what happened when the president called both the governor, the deputy governor, the speaker of the House of Assembly, and some other prominent, including Nelson Wike himself. From what was in that list, Fubara was elected as the president was also elected. The constitution that guides the president to execute his duties as a president, the same thing that also guides the governor to execute his duty according to the dictate of the constitution, for God's sake. Well, if there is anything, the president has the power to sit both parties down and let them discuss. There wasn't any discussion.
Was there supposed? How was there supposed to, Dr. Henry? Sorry to interject. How was there supposed to be a discussion where the governor didn't consent the president as regards to the whole situation going on in Rivers State?
It was the president that conferred this meeting.
All right.
Calling both parties. That is the side of those who are, the supporters of Nelson Wike,
right,
and those.
Well, there's a clear difference between conferring the meeting and consulting someone as regards to pressing issue that is going on in your state.
Now look at this.
All right.
Looking at the list, what was in that list, as it regards the piece you talked about, the president himself talked about, go and implement this. That was not the way to settle political dispute that concern two warring parties. And on that, the young man came back and look at the whole thing. And mind you also, he started implementing those things. But at a point, something went wrong.
Okay.
Something went wrong. And the whole problem started again. And so for me, I am not saying that the president doesn't have the power to impose state of emergency in any part of this country. That's not what I'm saying, because that's not exactly what the Constitution says. The Constitution gave him that power to do that. There's no two ways about that. But the Constitution is not in any way, from that section I've quoted so far, from when I have also cited, empower the president to suspend a sitting governor, the deputy, and other institutions that has to do with the governance in the state.
All right, I will come back to that actually. Dr. Eunice, just to this last question. How might the suspension of elected officials impact public trust in governance in Rivers State moving forward?
Before I answer your question, can I react to his?
All right, no problem.
Can I react to what is, it beats the imagination.
All right.
When some persons have this opinion that what did Fubara do? What was there? Today I heard a youth, they asked a youth that, what do you think is it? What do you want? He said, no, I want Fubara to come back. They said, okay, no problem. But do you know the issue? He said, to tell you the truth, I don't even really know. That's what the populace are being so sentimental without finding out what is the core issue. And that's what my colleague here now, I just wanted to react to what he said, because it's like, what the president said, everything was Fubara do this, Fubara do that, and stuff like that. But the fact is, who went out of the rule of law? Who is the, let me use a milder word.
So talking about going out of the rule of law,
yes.
Can you cite some instances where the governor went out?
But we all know this is not, it's something that like a media person like you should know. For example, you're presenting an appropriation, appropriation before the budget, and when I say illegal, I'll use the word illegal because and in the House of Assembly, we all know that you have to form a quorum.
Okay.
Anything less than a quorum is illegal, from my point of view and from the Constitution. So he presenting that budget, after which he even went ahead to disburse, and they ran a whole year, 2024, without an appropriation bill. Is it not an offense?
All right.
That's just what I'm telling you.
Okay.
What about the one he went at? Even after the High Court, the courts even said it was a joke taking too far. He was called to order, but he still went ahead to do another one.
All right.
That's just two, or there are more, which we all know. You understand? So when things like this happen, you start saying that, how do we solve this? you have gotten out of line. We're trying to be our president was only trying to bring Fubara back to the line in which the line of the rule of law where he needs to walk through.
All right. So just one last question. How might the suspension of these elected officials, the governor, deputy governor, as well as the River State House of Assembly members, how is this going to impact public trust in governance, most especially in River State moving forward?
There is going to be public trust in governance because if you can remember, if you remember what the president said, he said they are there, okay, they are being suspended for like 6 months to start with.
Initial period
of 6 months. But he is not saying it mustn't be the total 6 months. If they can, come to terms, okay, solve the issues before the next 1 month, before the next 2 months, all well and good. And that is what the populace is looking out for them to do. I believe once this is solved and in the nearest possible time, I bet you the populace, the Rivers people, and the rest of Nigerians, they will, in fact, the trust in which they have in the government will even appreciate.